experience so far. I'm going to get right into it since we only have 45 minutes and I want to make sure everyone gets the most out of this. I'm Jason Zemcik. I lead the product management team at Policy Reporter. So those of you that don't know us, we're a payer intelligence tracking service. So we have a database that tracks payer policies, coverage criteria, sends alerts when payers change criteria. So utility there for advocates, providers, and even manufacturers use us to track how their products are covered, how competitor products are covered within a therapeutic class. So if we can help you in any way, happy to talk with you throughout the conference about that, my day job, if you will. And what I'm going to speak about here today, as you can see, next level networking. So this is something that is truly near and dear to me. And when I give these talks, I always say that they are for the 2019 version of me. When I think about myself, earlier in my career, networking was the farthest thing from my mind. I had a moment, I realized that I actually didn't have a network. I was doing well in my career, advancing by all metrics. You would think I was doing really well. But it occurred to me that nobody outside of my company knew me. And that was kind of my moment where I realized that I had to truly lean in on building a network. And the thought of that was very intimidating. You think about going to networking events and exchanging business cards and having to go up and talk to people that you don't know, and all of those things just kind of made me shudder, and I was really averse to it. So when I give these presentations, it's a way of sharing the journey that I went on over the last, we'll say, 5 years to get to where I am now and help other people, because I know that there are 2019 me's all out there in the world and in this conference and sitting in this room, quite frankly. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and really hope that everyone's going to get some things out of this. I'm going to leave you with some practical advice. I'm going to leave you with some action items to do coming right out of this conference so that you can kickstart your own networking efforts. And if we can get, do we use the arrows on the slide clicker or downward? There we go. All right, thank you. All right, so as I said, in 2019, I realized I had a big problem. It hit me like a ton of bricks when I said nobody outside of my company knew who I was. Here is a picture. I went to a conference. It was a copay assistance conference. That's the part of the industry that I came up in. And I just saw all these people talking to each other and people that would walk in and they knew each other from different companies, and I realized that wasn't me. So as you can see there, I recognized I was missing something critical if I was going to truly grow my career, and also the self-reflection of realizing internally that it was due to my own self-limitations. As I said, it's intimidating to go to a conference and walk up to someone and talk to a person you don't know and introduce yourself. It's intimidating to get on LinkedIn and try to even talk about your industry or write a post about a topic that's going on that you know about and share it out to the world and have to see what people think, or if anyone thinks anything at all. Sometimes the crickets can be even more demoralizing. So that was a big part of my recognition there, was that I had to, within myself, get over those self-limitations and those beliefs. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how I did that and how that contributed to building a network. As you can see there, the one thing that I would tell you all to think about, if you are very networking averse, as I was then, it limited me in the sense that if I chose to, and I was extremely happy with my company that I worked for, and I still am because I've been there going on 13 years, so things were going well, but I realized if I ever wanted to look outside the company, if I ever wanted to pursue job opportunities elsewhere, again, who would I call? Nobody knew me. I would be that throw your application in online among 400 other people and hope that you get noticed. So that was kind of a big aha moment for me. But the other one that I realized, it limited me even within my own company as I was trying to move up into more senior ranks and more senior positions, because the lack of a network prevented me from generating new business opportunities for our company, for developing business opportunities for our company. And as I always talk about career growth, tying your own individual success to the company's success. How do you contribute to the success of the company? And a big thing there is getting over that hurdle where you are able to generate new opportunities for your company. And so I recognize that lack of a professional network was very much inhibiting me in being able to do that. So the bottom portion there kind of sets us off here on some of the tips we're going to get into. What did I do about it, and how can you avoid this same problem or fix it quicker than I did? Because again, that's always what I try to do whenever I talk to people about this topic. All right, so first, let's just start out in show of hands. How many people get that just cringe or shudder feeling when you think about the word networking? And be honest, raise your hand if, okay. That was me. That's exactly who I was back in this 2019 timeframe when I talk about. So when you see pictures like this, what are some thoughts that comes to people's mind? Volunteer. You see these conference ballrooms, exhibit halls full of people, reception type events. Last night, for example, the opening reception, people are talking to one another. You're not here with a big contingent from your own organization. Just one person in the audience. What's something that you think when you look at these types of pictures? Overwhelming, okay. Opportunity, exactly. But overwhelming, absolutely, yes. And that's, again, that's how I was. I would just feel awkward and cringy, and how do I walk up to someone and I don't know and talk to them? And it just was something that I just felt like I did not have in me. I'm here to tell you that you do. Everyone has it in them. Last night I did a LinkedIn post talking about this session, and I actually said, me back then would have thought that it was absolutely insane that I would be giving a conference talk on networking at that time, because I had all those types of feelings when I looked at scenes like this and when I thought about going to receptions and events and everything. So first thing to tell yourself is that if that's where you are right now, it's absolutely okay if you feel that way. You can get over it, you can get past it, but first just acknowledge, say, right now this is where I just don't have a good feeling about doing these types of things, because that's the first step towards fixing kind of the mental construct around how you approach networking, building relationships, introducing yourself to new people. All right, so the first thing that I started doing, and I feel especially going forward in this era, is building a personal brand. So all of this kind of came about right as COVID began. So the conference that I showed you the first picture of, that was in December of 2019. So a few months later, as we all know, COVID hit and we were all stuck at home and we were working virtually and spending 7-8 hours a day on Zoom and Teams calls. Ironically or interestingly, when I look back, my biggest networking year was 2020. During COVID, didn't go out, see anyone in person anywhere, but I did a ton of networking online, through LinkedIn primarily. I was on, obviously, calls all day for work, but the people that I met there, I said to myself, I'm gonna make a sincere effort to build these relationships, to further these relationships. And so one of the core elements of that was building a personal brand. You hear that a lot. It's one of those things, I myself was this way for a long time. You kind of write it off and you think that's, something outside of like your professional scenario. You think more just, mainstream, social media, entertainment type of thing. But I'm here to tell you that professionally, it's been the biggest thing that I have done to grow my network, is develop my own personal brand. And that's, in plain English, that's just who you are. What is unique about you? What are people going to remember about you? And more importantly, why would people want to network and build a relationship with you and get to know you? So the important thing about personal branding is just key elements. And I always like to focus on the rule of 3. So whenever I do pretty much anything, I try to maybe it's the way my mind works, I try to neatly bucket it into 3. So I try to think, what are 3 elements of my personal brand? And so here are some that I've used in my branding and in my networking. So the first one, leadership lessons that I learned. My background prior to entering the healthcare space, I was a military officer. So I served 7 years in the Army. And I like to talk quite a bit about leadership lessons that I learned as a military officer that I've carried with me into my professional, into my corporate career, and even in my life in general, just as an individual, as a parent, all of the things that I learned there that have translated into life. That's a core component of what I've built my own personal brand on. The one in the middle there, that's kind of the pure industry work-related pillar of my personal branding, explaining complicated topics in a way that help people understand. As I said, my background, I came up in patient services, so copay assistance programs, hub programs, nurse educator programs, and working with clients, pharma manufacturers. I would always be in these situations where I had to explain very complicated topics around their copay programs and break it down in a way that made it make sense. And the one big example that I'll give that I lived truly day in, day out for the better part of 2 years was copay accumulators, copay maximizers. I gave hundreds of talks to clients and at conferences on those programs, on how they work, how to understand if they were affecting patients, and then what can you do to address them. And that was one of the things that I became known for over that 2020 to 2022 timeframe. As you see there, I had an opportunity to write in a number of industry publications, and so that became a pillar, the truly subject matter pillar of my personal brand. And then the final one out there, and this is kind of the fun one, and I would recommend everyone, think about this when you're doing your branding, not just all about your work and your day job, but I talk about dad life. So I have 2 daughters. My daughter Madeline there on the right, she just turned 11. Brianna on the left, she turned 5 earlier this year. And that is a key component of just who I am, who I want to be a good example for them, a good role model, an involved dad. And again, a lot of the lessons carry over. And I would say, my 11-year-old, she always says, Dad, not everything has to be a life lesson. You don't have to tell me how everything's going to apply later in life. But that is a key component too of who I am and what I've kind of built my brand around. So what I would tell you is, as you start off on this networking journey, think about 3 key things about yourself that you can use when you put those together that make it uniquely you, because that's the one thing. And there's a saying, and I honestly can't remember who said it. It was one of the famous writer, a while back, but that idea of just be you because everyone else is taken. And I've tried to keep that in my mind. Someone in the audience probably knows who said it, but I've really tried to keep that in my mind as I've gone through this. What are the things that are uniquely me that I can just be genuine about? It's honestly not even work or not even trying when I talk about these things, because they just are who I am. And so as you think about your brand, I would challenge you all to identify what are 3 things that are just uniquely you that you can then go out and genuinely share with other people. All right, so we're actually going to get involved here this morning. We're going to go through a practical exercise. Volunteers appreciated. I'll call on people if we need to, but I think we're going to have a few volunteers. So I'd like to hear anyone want to talk about 3 elements of your own personal brand. And as we said, what is one purely work-related topic about what you do in your job, one purely personal topic about your hobbies, your interests, what you do outside of work, and then one crossover topic. As I said, that for me, that was the leadership component that I carried from the military into my professional career now. So volunteers, let's hear about someone's personal brand here.
First thing is show up.
Okay.
Okay, so I said show up.
Okay.
I have always dressed for the job I want, not the job I have.
Okay.
And the crossover is I was a commercial contract negotiator for 20 years.
Okay.
Which requires cross-functional collaboration and negotiation, and then became a cancer patient of a rare form that did not have a protocol.
Okay.
And I'm using my skills acquired in my corporate career I retired to form private patient advocates so that I can teach others how to advocate for themselves.
Yep, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, absolutely, just seeing what you learned through your own experience and now how it can help others. So that is remarkable, and thank you, absolutely. One more, one other personal brand, if we can hear elements that you would talk about yourself.
Sure. So I built my name is Allie. I'm from Texas Children's Hospital, and I built the patient assistance program for Texas Children's Hospital.
Okay.
6 years later, I have helped over 100 families avoid $25 million by using patient assistance programs, free drugs, copays, other things like that. My crossover topic would be I am a former D1 athlete.
Okay.
So a lot of lessons on the field that you can take into life for sure. And then my personal topic is I am now a coach, and I am the person that I needed when I was a little 12-year-old girl, and both of them being equally my passion, and helping low-income families, but also like teaching kids that hard work will get you far, and it's not always a cherry on top, and it's a lot of hard work, and yeah, sometimes your love becomes your job, but it's totally worth it.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you. And again, that element of, you said it so well, you're now the coach that you needed when you were competing, that's exactly the way that I try to approach this. And even, the team that I lead now, we have a lot of early career people, in their mid-20s, kind of, first, second jobs out of college. And that is a core element of what I try to do for them is, if this took me 8 years to learn, I want to help you learn it in 3 or 4. So thank you for sharing that, and absolutely, you're spot on there. So does that give everyone kind of a good idea of how you can start to think about how you want to present yourself in a networking scenario, in person, virtually, just having that construct in your mind, because that's one of the biggest things. And in my earlier days when I just didn't know how to approach this, I was kind of, my mind was just all over the place. And you go to these types of meetings and you're like, what do I do? What do I say? What do I talk about? So that is really helpful when you have that construct in your mind of like, these are the pillars about who I am, and everything that I do is going to emanate from that. All right, so you heard me mention LinkedIn earlier. I can truly, honestly, without hesitation say it has been the biggest tool in my networking journey. And especially given that, as I mentioned, I started off on this journey right at the beginning of 2020. So doing these types of things just wasn't an option for that whole first year. But I still managed to build relationships with so many people through LinkedIn virtually. And so kind of the way I approached it was all day I was on meetings. We had client meetings and I was talking to people. And so what I would do then is after that, I would go find these people on LinkedIn. And you'll find, nowadays, most people have a LinkedIn profile. Some use it a lot, some don't. I was in the latter before that, to be honest. It was basically the place that every couple years I would just log in and update my resume, and then I wouldn't touch it again until I changed jobs. But what I found is it is an incredible platform to be able to virtually network with people. And now that we're back into in person, you go out and you meet people for the first time in person, and if you've almost kind of preset the scenario where I meet people and they're like, oh, I feel like I know you already because I've seen you on LinkedIn, we've talked directly on LinkedIn. So it really does kind of take some of that trepidation out of it. It takes the edge off, so to speak. And then it's actually, you'll run into these interesting scenarios. I was at a conference back in May and met someone. It was like 3 years that we had known each other on LinkedIn and corresponding, and then it's like, oh, we're finally getting to meet in person after that, but you already have kind of pre-built the relationship. So I would strongly suggest, in fact, let's do show of hands here. How many people have a LinkedIn account? Okay, that's good. Now, of the people that have an account, how many use it regularly? How many have logged in within the last month? Okay, about half. So as you can see, and that's not uncommon. As I said, that was me prior to this. So hopefully you can get some tips here around how you can use that as a tool in your toolkit. So first thing I would tell you is go in, reset your password, figure out how to get in if you haven't been in for a while, because I know that was me. But But make sure it's current, update it, talk about your, list all the roles that you've had, list your current position. In the About Me section, use that to do more than just kind of copy paste your resume. Actually write out about you. What do you do? And I talk about how, I came up at 10 plus years in patient support services. Prior to that, I was a military officer. One of my true outside of work pursuits, I've written several books, so I'm a big sports fan, Pittsburgh Penguins, Pirates, Steelers. And so I put that on my LinkedIn, outside of my primary career. We'll have to talk after this. Outside of my primary career, I'm the author of several books about Pittsburgh sports, and it's just a way that you can help people get to truly know you. Because if I've learned anything, it's that people want to know who you really are. So when they go to the About section, they just kind of see the standard resume, bullet points, and everything. Quite honestly, we're conditioned to just sort of gloss over that. But if you have a story, if you talk about who you really are, that's going to make people stop, notice, take interest, and that's the foundation of being able to build a relationship. So I would definitely say use the About Me section to your advantage to really tell about yourself. From a how do you actually use it standpoint, 3 things that you can do now. And one thing that I recognize, and I was the exact same way, is that a lot of people are hesitant, nervous to post anything anywhere. And you think about social media in real life, and Facebook, Instagram, all those. Like I understand. People are just like, oh, what do people think? If I had to sum up this whole talk in probably one sentence, it was like my 5-year journey of getting over what do people think. So one of the things that you can do, we'll talk about writing posts. But if you just aren't ready for that, it doesn't mean, it's not an all or nothing thing. You can still successfully use LinkedIn without putting your own posts, your own thoughts out there. So if you see on the left, one of the things that I started doing was commenting on other posts. So industry topics, people in the industry that had large followings that regularly posted about topics that affected patient support services, drug pricing, patient assistance. Those were the work topics that I sort of got my wheels moving on. And so I would go to different accounts, different people that had followings and posted things, and then I would start commenting on it. And so one thing that I'll tell you about commenting is to make yourself stand out. Get away or stay away from just great post, great thoughts, insightful, just kind of those just sort of mundane type of comments where it's almost like you're just doing it to do it. So I tried to use a good example here of one where I actually gave some thoughts. Think about it like being a real live in-person conversation. If you're talking to someone and they say something about a topic and you just say, that's great. It's just, you're not going to have a dialogue. So think of commenting on posts as a conversation, as a dialogue. So you want to give your original thoughts on the topic. If you can get the conversation to continue, that's an even better thing, because again, the biggest part here is genuinely engaging people, showing something, adding value to the discussion. So the middle one here is, again, if you are not ready to, you're like, what would I say? What would I talk about? What would I write about? You don't want to write your own post on a topic, even that's relevant to your career field, your work. You can do a summary of an article, of a paper, of an event that happened, something like that. So I think I used the example here hard to see over here. Yeah, the Mark Cuban. So, Mark Cuban has been very outspoken about drug pricing, about starting his company, about PBM reform. And those are all topics that, he does a lot of talks on, and he's gone and, testified in Congress and talked at the White House and everything. So I did a summary of his remarks here when he went to the White House and when he talked about this. And so it wasn't my original thoughts, but it was me giving my insight on what he said. I watched the 40-minute video and I said, these are kind of the key things that I took away from that. So that's kind of an in-between way. If you're just kind of stuck in that, what would I write about? I don't have anything good to say, which is not true, by the way. We'll get into that. But if you're in that mind frame, find an industry topic and then find an event that occurred. Sign up for a webinar and watch it, or read an article, and then give a summary of it. And that's kind of a way to ease yourself into putting information out there without wrestling with what should I write about my own thoughts. And then the final one over here, again, a third way that you can get active on LinkedIn without writing your own posts is to be the connector. And this is something that when I was early in my journey, someone that I worked with, that he was further along in his career, he mentioned something to me, and he knew he was one of those people that knows, I always joke, they know everyone in the industry and they're, 20, 30 years in and everything. But he mentioned something to me that stuck with me, as he said, at a certain point in your career, you become the connector. And so trying to become the connector earlier, it doesn't require anything, you don't have to put yourself out there in the sense of I'm writing this public post that everyone's going to read. But when you recognize two people that could benefit from knowing each other, introduce them because there's a chance that they don't know each other. And that was, I tried to just use this example here. Two people that I've gotten to know through going to conferences, and I saw each of them posted that they were going to the same conference coming up, and I thought, they may not know each other. So I'm just going to send this note and be like, you know what, you both you're in similar spaces, and I've gotten to know both of you, I think highly of both of you, and I think it would be great if you met each other. I've done that so many times for people, whether it's career opportunities, someone has a role that they're looking to fill, and I think, oh, this person would be really good for it. Or just different things where, when you can make that match between other people, that naturally, one, it helps others, but it also kind of shows your value, your credibility. It shows people that you're genuine and wanting to be a helper, and it just helps build your relationship with the people involved. So those are 3 ways that if you're in the space of, what are people going to think? I don't want to write a post of my own. I don't know what to write about. You can still use LinkedIn as a very effective networking tool starting today. So, does anyone have any thoughts, any examples after hearing this on something that you personally would do, knowing your job, your role, the space you're in? Interested in hearing any examples of something that you would do that you think could be effective here.
So I give credit to the person that actually posted it the first time.
Yep.
Because it's not mine.
Yep.
But that's what
That's
I'm trying to do.
excellent. Absolutely, yeah. Showing, just genuine appreciation. Thank you for sharing this. I learned a lot from it. Anything beyond just, like or, it's a very good point. One more over here.
Building from that, he gave me a mic. Building from that, there's a ways to offer reviews for people. And so I've spent 25 years in academia, and so I would often, as students who would graduate, I would ask them to, write reviews of things that they loved about my classes or things that I, have done. But then I also started doing that for other people. So if you've worked with somebody and had a really great experience, you can start the process by writing, putting in little notes and writing reviews for them. And then oftentimes, as soon as that's in, it automatically asks them to do one in reverse.
Yep.
And if you've already done that, they're a lot more likely to say, oh yeah, I had a really great experience with that person too. And then you get, that collection of people talking about the great things that you offer.
Absolutely. Very good point. I'm actually glad you brought that up because that is one that I didn't include here, but you're entirely correct. I've gone on and I have people that have written reviews on me as a conference speaker. Different events that our company has gone to where I've presented, and then afterwards I reach out to the organizers and I say, would you be willing to write a review of how I've done? If anyone in here wants to write a review, I'd be more than happy and greatly appreciate it. Well, thank you so much. And it's like you're reading my mind because we're going to get into the next section, how we can kind of pull this together and get started right here today. There you go. So, I don't know, maybe you got the slides beforehand, but everyone, if you have LinkedIn, if you have it on your phone, pull out your phone right now and let's all connect. Send me a request. I will connect back with you. I'll follow you. I'll support you. I'll read what you write. Because one of the things that I truly, genuinely believe is that there were so many people when I was starting out and I had very few connections, and the people that I was connected with were pretty much all the people that were at my current company or that I went to school with. I didn't, there were a lot of people that helped me along the way, and you start small and you get a few people that you start connecting with, engaging with on topics, and it was really beneficial to me. So one of my biggest commitments when I teach these types of classes and when I help people with this is to truly give back in that way. So send me a request, we'll connect. When you write about things, when you post about things, I'll be there, I'll support you, and we'll end up building each other's network. So definitely go ahead, do that right now. And the biggest thing too that I want to really let everyone know is early on, don't worry about your number of connections, your number of followers. Like, that is definitely something that we can all get in our own heads about. Because especially too when you think of mainstream social media and it's all, how many 100,000 followers and million followers and all that. Even on LinkedIn, when I was starting out, I was very intimidated. There were people in my space in the pharma industry with thousands and tens of thousands of LinkedIn connections and followers. And there I was with, I think I had like 300 or something when I started. So, it's a mental thing early on. And I'm here today to tell you, don't worry about it. Everyone starts somewhere. Everyone has that beginning point. So please allow yourself to realize that it's okay if you have, 52 followers and they're like all your classmates and relatives or something like that. We'll start to build each other's networks up here today. But then the other big thing is the second point. Just still don't worry about it later on. Here I am, I'm several years in. I don't have tons and tons of, I think I'm right around 4,000. And that's a lot for me because the majority of them are relevant, they're genuine, they're people that I truly keep up with, that I know versus, you're just hitting the connect button like all day and you have all these like random people that you're connected with that you don't really know. So the other point that I truly want to make is worry about quality over quantity. You will absolutely see people that have large followings on LinkedIn and everywhere. It doesn't take an extremely huge following to build a valuable and beneficial network. And so it's honestly one of those things that I've tried to not intentionally keep my follower count low for that matter, but lower, to be an example that you can effectively build a network and not be, the 50,000 follower person. So keep that in mind. When you're starting out, don't let it intimidate you. And as you continue to grow, don't worry if you're not growing these exponential numbers. It's far, far more important to focus on the quality and the relevance of the relationships and the people that you're connected with over pure numbers. All right, so talking about relationship building, we hear this so much. What does this really mean? So to me, again, it all comes back to just being genuine. And it's that whole quote earlier again, how I said, just be yourself because that's the only thing that you don't have to worry about. You don't have to think about, how do I do this? How do I just be you. And I know it's not as simple as simply saying that and everything else you don't have to worry about, but that has been the core of my networking approach. Be genuine, try to help, add value, give before you ask, and if you do those things, people will see that, and people will come to appreciate that. And the other thing that I've learned is that the people who don't, and it's rare to be honest, but if people don't, you don't have to worry about that anyway, because they're probably, for whatever reason, and they may not be a bad person, but they're just not someone that you want to have a relationship with. So it kind of takes away some of that pressure. If you're like, I'm just going to be myself and try to help people where I see opportunities and add value to them, it makes it much easier. And it kind of is a freeing feeling, if you will, or at least it was for me. So here's a couple examples of how this has played out for me. So one of the things that those that know me, and you've probably seen, when I get a business card, the first thing I do is I take a picture of it. And the reason is because I'm going to lose that physical card. So if I ever get your card, 99% chance, the number one thing I do, I pull out my phone and I snap a picture because I have all these, I think I have like 8 cards tucked in here, and I'm glad I have photos of them because who knows where these are all going to go. But a funny story as we sit here now, years later, Elizabeth Johnson, so, co-CEO of Healthcare Advocate Summit, had seen each other on LinkedIn before, but we're at Assembia. It's 2021. It's the first Assembia back after COVID. This is, the biggest pharma conference of the year. We're standing in the check-in line at the hotel, and I see her. We walk up to each other, we talk, we finally met. She gives me her card. There's the photo. A few years later, we've attended this conference for several years now. We keep in touch, there's things, our companies have worked together, so we've done business together, and then just personally, we've kept up with each other and each other's lives, and what do you do outside of work and all of that. And here's an example of, a year or two ago, we got this idea to do this joint panel webinar. We did a LinkedIn Live. It was me and it was her and a few others. Melissa was there and several others from this community. And it was a networking and career growth virtual seminar. So rather than just wait, for the few times a year that we have in-person events, we got this idea and we put this together, and it was beneficial for obviously all of the community that comes to this conference and people that are in these circles. It was beneficial for me to help build my skill at giving these types of talks. And it was beneficial for my company kind of as a result, because I was out there, you see me there, I'm in my company shirt and everything, and it's just, it's exposure and it's marketing for our company. So all these things coming together, but it was born out of meeting, connecting, building a relationship, maintaining it over years, and then growing it to where we were able to bring in other people and do something really beneficial for so many people. The bottom one here, similar example, this is recently, so last year at this conference, Janelle Ball, who I'm sure many in this room know, got to meet her, found out she had just started her podcast, which is awesome. If you don't listen to it, you should. I highly recommend it. She's a great host. And she actually asked me if I wanted to be a guest. And I said, of course, I would love to. Because again, it was good for me personally as I built my career, my personal brand. And it was good for our company because, again, being a representative of the company, and I get the exposure to this entire audience that listens to her podcast. So I went and did that. And then a few months later, Biologic Coordinators of Dermatology, Craig Schwett, reached out to me and just said, hey, would you want to, we have a spot in our next, our industry magazine, Access Dermatology, would you want to write an article? This was just this past summer. And so I said, yeah, I'd love to, because once again, you're probably picking up on these key themes. Good for the company, good for me. And those are things that I've always tried to, when I approach these things, I think to myself, is it good for me as an individual? But if it's only good for me and I'm working as a representative of my company, then that's not an area I want to go into. I want to make it so that it's good for both my organization and for me personally. So that was another way that building relationships, networking has materialized over starting small with a relationship, continuing to grow it. Janelle and I, we kept up, we talked, we actually, both her and then her husband, I love talking about football with her husband, and so we talked about that over time, and that's what led to my opportunity to be on her podcast and then ultimately write this article. All right, so I kind of touched on these, but I want to wrap it all up. Be genuine. I can't say it enough. Just be you. Don't worry about should I act this certain way, because ultimately then you have to keep that up over time. And that's kind of a life thing beyond just a professional thing. So just be yourself. Give more than you ask for. That's the other thing that I think is so important. When I was building my LinkedIn presence, I would write articles, I would write posts, once you get to that point, I would offer just all the things I talked about, how I said I would explain a lot of these topics around patient assistance, copay. I would just write educational, informative content, and people got really appreciative of that. And they were like, hey, you're helping me understand this, so thank you. And that bottom one, create a reason for people to think of you as their answer. I try to still today tell myself that. I'm like, why would someone pick me to help them with whatever this particular topic is? Right now, why would someone ask me for networking advice? And so I try to keep that in my mind. Like, what is the reason that someone is going to think of you as their answer to whatever the topic or the question is? All right, so that said, I truly greatly appreciate everyone making the time to come here. It's not lost on me that, you're at this event and it's early morning, and so everyone that showed up here today, sincerely, thank you. It means a lot. I want to be able to help you all because I know so many people have helped me over the years. And this is a topic that it gets very personal because, as I said, there's so much mental hurdles to get over about networking, how you see yourself, putting yourself out there, what do people think? And so it's been a true journey for me to get to where I am now. And even recognizing that I'm still, it's a lifelong pursuit of trying to get better at things. But it is one of the things I care most deeply about, helping people get past many of the things that I did. So thank you. Please, let's connect on LinkedIn. I'd love to help you. I'll give you one final practical takeaway. I do this with every conference I go to when I leave the event. So when you're sitting at the airport, Friday on your way home, write a summary. I attended Healthcare Advocate Summit this week. It was great. Here are 3 key things that I learned. If we connect and you do that, I'll make sure to read it, like it. But that's something that I have done every conference that I've gone to, and it's been incredibly beneficial for me. So hopefully you have some practical things that you can take away right now today. I appreciate everyone's time again, and I think we have a few minutes left for questions. I think we have one there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This was great. You did a great job. I actually thanked one of my bosses for being such a great boss on LinkedIn. I know she's looking for a job, and I never think about that. Like, I talk about all the bad bosses I've had, but I never thought I have had some good ones. So thank you, John.
Wow. Thank you so much. No, that's fine. Thank you. That's great to hear, and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much for this. I think it was really helpful, and we hear about LinkedIn, and I think it's a good reminder that it is actually a really good tool. And I'm gonna just do one small shameless plug. I'm with Health Advocate X. I'm Melinda Johnson, and we are, as a part of this continuing the conversation, we're hosting a free networking event for all healthcare patient advocates. So I have tickets and information for that. I'll be in the back if you would like that. But networking is so incredibly important for not only to brainstorm different ideas, to potentially get new clients. I know as an advocate, I can't do it all. So having a network is vital, because if I have a patient that comes to me, if I have an organization that comes to me and I don't have that information, we have to be able to ask for help, and having a strong network helps us, and it also helps us avoid burnout, because we have that support. We have people that we can go to that are going to know what we're going through. So at Health Advocate X, we are really committed and recommitted to providing a network of support. So just thank you for this. This was wonderful, and it just really reminds me of this is really important work that we're doing. So thank you.
Yeah, very, very welcome and very well said. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for doing this. I found this very helpful.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask your advice. The challenge that I find with posting is getting outside of my head. Yes. I mean, I will just think so hard on what to write on the simplest thing, because it's on such a big platform that I eventually am like, I'm not going to even do it.
Yep.
So what is your advice on getting past that?
So I've been there. I was there. I think we all are there. The number one thing I'll say, and I know it sounds easier said than done, is you just have to start somewhere. Because the worst thing that will happen, it's kind of, we build up these fears in our own mind about, how awful something could turn out, and someone's going to see this and think I don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm not good at my job, and then my boss is going to see it and I'm going to lose my job. And we get on this hamster wheel of just thinking like doomsday scenario, and in reality, what I found is your earliest LinkedIn post, you're going to write it, and probably 2 people are going to like it, if that, and nobody else is even going to realize it happened. And so it's kind of that, and I don't say that to discourage you. I say it actually to encourage you to just get it out there. Because the only way that you will build the confidence, build the skill to do that, is to start somewhere. I think we all have scenarios where we spend, years and years and years, and we're just, we could have made so much progress and we just never started because we're paralyzed by that fear. So my biggest piece of advice is the worst case scenario that you think is going to happen isn't actually going to happen. You're probably going to post something and a few people are going to see it and everybody else is going to they're going to go about their business. And so take that pressure off of yourself and just recognize that it's really not as bad as we all make it out in our heads to be. Because once you get comfortable doing it, you'll become more and more comfortable. And then what happened for me is I started to get some people that actually appreciated what I wrote. And so each time I posted, people would like it, people would comment, and then you start to get some confidence behind you. But you really do just have to start. So that's my biggest advice. And I know we're out of time. I don't know if we can squeeze in one more, but thank you all again for attending.